Oconee County Planning Commission for Monday, March 2nd to order, please. Ms. Law, would you?
Dear Lord, we come to you today just thanking you, Lord, for the sunshine we had this weekend. We just ask, Lord, that you would be with us through this week, through this meeting, Lord. Let us take into account all of our neighbors, Lord, not just those that are right beside us, but all of the neighbors in our county as we try to do what's best for our whole county, Lord. We just ask that you help us conduct ourselves in a way that would be pleasing to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Frankie, could you please send the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I believe Mr. Barnett is signed up for a comment.
For the record, I'm Jerry Barnett. You should all know that by now. I'm a bit of a truth machine. And I attended all of these comprehensive plan meetings, or a lot of them, because I felt like it was my duty. I filled out no papers. I'm one of the 99+% of the population of Oconee County that send you a message loud and clear. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. 0.8% of this population seems to think that they have the right to have a plan for the rest of us. But we have our own plan. And it's time for y'all to make some adjustments while you still have time to this doorstop that some people are so proud of. And put a stop to this intrusion into our personal and private lives. Or at least modify it, because we're not going to take kindly to people coming here and robbing us and using government to rob us of our birthright. All right, this, I do hope y'all will spend as much time on this as you do trying to rob us of our private property rights. If you'll do just a fraction of the work on this that you've done, trying to push personal agenda and pick our pockets, you might get something done for all the people. This concerns all of us. This solid waste is very, very serious, and it's going to get more serious in the future. At some point, you're not going to be able to transport this waste across state lines. And when it comes to recycling, maybe you might give these recyclers a little incentive in the form of cash to haul this stuff away. It'd be cheaper than burying it and cheaper than having to haul it away. If you have to pay somebody whatever it's costing us to haul it to Georgia to take it and recycle it, you're ahead of the game. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Melinda Justice?
Jenkins.
Okay.
So my name is Melinda Jenkins, and I am a new permanent resident of Oconee County, but I am a landowner of 20 years. My husband and I both attended Clemson, is where we met, and we bought property on Lake Huey in 1999 and built a home there with plans to retire here. So in July, our youngest graduated from college, and we finally were able to get ourselves over here, got here as quick as we could. And I am on faculty at Clemson in the nursing program. So I wanted to just come and meet you guys and let you know I live in Cragmore, on Cragmore Point, and there's quite a bit going on with commercial development at the entry of our subdivision. which is a little bit concerning to us as a community. We are not a gated community. Most of us who purchased land back in 1999, year 2000, and those since, loved the idea of sprawling long lots down to the lake, not a gated country club type community, no swim tennis, no HOA fees, etc. But right now, we're feeling a little vulnerable because I guess Adam helped explain to us, because many of us have moved here from other places, that there wasn't really any zoning, restrictions on land until 2008. And what we were told by realtors many years ago was not buildable land, and was residential, but no one would put homes on because the topography wasn't well done at the time we bought property, is now zoned commercial on both sides of the entrance to our road. And we have only one way into our road. It is dead ends every direction. There's just a couple little fingers off. And so we have asked our councilmen for the county council to consider changing what might be allowed there, understanding that development is going to occur and that we do need things in that area. It's just our neighborhood is the only one that our only entrance is completely surrounded by commercial property. When you look at the other communities around us, they're residential right around their entrance, and the commercial starts based on the map that Adam provided us. So really, I'm just trying to come to get involved and to meet people because I am so new to the community, in hopes that, we will still be able to get into our community without a gate. I think my biggest concern, and the constituents that we've been able to bring together as a community, because we're not we don't have a big HOA and email chain, we're trying to get a few things established, is that an encroachment permit has already been granted for commercial entrances to have a South Cragmore address, and it's a residential street. And I think that's probably our biggest concern, not so much that development might occur, but that it's not coming off 130, it's gonna be entrances off of our residential street. So we've kind of been told that it's a done deal and there's nothing we can do about it, but I'm here trying to ask that the planning organization of this county at least consider the residents on that street. I think it's maybe 15 plus homes that are somewhere between 1 to 3 million each. And, pretty big tax revenue for the county, and we just hope that we'll have a voice in trying to keep our street residential. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Is there a comment from anyone on the commission regarding anything?
Well, I'm probably gonna get a lot of slack for this, but I've been to several meetings, and I keep hearing this 1/8, 1/10 of a whatever. This planning commission and the planning department gave the entire county ample chances to get out and voice their opinion about the comprehensive plan. This arguing and discussing at coffee shops and around heaters in the barbershop is fine and dandy, but if you want to be a part of this county and make sure that government in general is not infringing on your rights, come to meetings. Get out to these little nitpicky places that we have these meetings, that everybody has meetings, and voice your opinion. You can't be heard unless you get out. Talking at home doesn't help the government know what's going on. We just keep harping on this small group that got out. Yeah, those are the ones that chose to take out of their life and come to these meetings, voice their opinion. Everyone maybe didn't agree with what they said, but at least they got out and got involved. And that's why we have the plan that we have. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Thanks, Craig.
Well,
Any other?
I don't exactly see the eye to eye with Frankie about a lot of stuff, but you can look out here and how many citizens of Oconee County are sitting here in the peanut gallery today. You know, everybody, I would love for people to have enough interest in what we do to attend the meetings and speak up like this lady did, and Mr. Barnett. He frequently gives us some guidance. But we're just supposing what the people of this county want just from, from our own ideas. If we would have some population show up and talk to us, I'd be glad to hear it. I don't know about everybody else.
It's always nice to get feedback. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Anybody else? All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Any comments on the minutes?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Mr. Steele. Ready?
Ready. Well, good afternoon. I'm Swain Steele. I'm Solid Waste Director for Oconee County. Just give you a little background. I've been working for Oconee now for close to 14 years. Previous to that, I worked for South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, both as a landfill permitter and as for just an EQC inspector. And went to Clemson and graduated in chemical engineering. Mr. Chapman here had asked us to provide some updates on our solid waste program and what y'all might do to help us and where we want to go with it over the next few years and into the future. So first thing I want to do is show where we've come from. You go into schools now and ask anybody if you've seen one of these before. Nobody in the schools remember these. Nobody. They're too young. Even our no high school graduates. We talked with one of the senior classes last year, and everyone had like, "Oh, where's that at?" And I'm like, "Well, that's how the roadsides of Oconee County used to look." Probably all of us that's been here can remember that. But it was dirty. It was unsafe. It was nasty. It was not the way to do. There was no recycling. It was just out of sight, out of mind. Throw it away as fast as you can on any kind of roadside. And so that's when really the solid waste department really started making a change. It was in 1991 when one of the first recycle centers were built. So here, where have we come from? Now here where we're at. We have 11 recycle centers throughout the county. Last year, we averaged about 1.9 million cars through our centers as a whole between all 11. Our busiest one is the one on the top left corner, is our Strawberry Farm Recycle Center. We get more traffic through it than any one of the others. We average about 1,600 cars a day through that facility. We are averaging about 16,000 tons now of household garbage and about 4,000 tons of recyclables coming from our centers. And residents, visitors can come to our centers at no charge from the standpoint of not having to pay to dispose of anything there. They can recycle it. It doesn't matter if we get flack, well, they're a Georgia tag on there or it's a North Carolina tag on their car. Well, they probably 9 times out of 10 own land in Oconee County. Because most of the time, those are coming right down to a subdivision. It's right down from there where they've owned land. So we don't have tags. We don't have any kind of stickers on the windows like some of our other counties locally have. They can just pull in, drop off their trash, and keep right on rolling. Our Class 2 C&D landfill located on Wells Highway. Last year, we disposed of roughly 27,000 tons of material. That's the most we've ever disposed in the landfill at one time. Growth is happening. But also we're taking in waste for a lot from Pickens County area around Clemson. They closed down a C&D, actually a transfer station over in Pendleton that was taking some waste, and now we're taking some of that waste from the growth that's along our borders right there. However, we recycled a good bit of material. Nearly 20,000, 23,000, 25,000 tons of material was actually recycled in the ways of dirt, concrete, block, brick. And also we put bins up for cardboard and scrap metal that we try to keep out of the landfill. Where the landfill's going, we're in the process now of permitting the entire acreage that's out there. When you come through our gates, the land to the right, left, front, there's 88 acres total that had old MSW landfill there from back in that was closed in 1998, all the way up to where our C&D landfill's at. We're actually permitting that to take C&D waste over the entire 88 acres. Once that gets permitted, that should extend the life of our landfill for about 125 years. So we're in the process of getting that done. It's in with DHEC now. They're in their permit review. And so we should hopefully know something hopefully by the summer, maybe later as the fall, whether or not they approve of the permit. Our transfer station, this past year, we transferred over 43,000 tons of waste. It cost $1.4 million to send it to Georgia. That's hauling and the tipping fee at the landfill there. That's all inclusive. The current fee, as we say, for the hauling and disposal is $34.70 per ton. The waste is hauled from here in Seneca over to the Homer landfill. Our transfer station is permitted for 300 tons a day. We're now averaging on Mondays and Thursdays, we're averaging anywhere from 250 to 280 a day on those days. And our overall average has bumped up to about 175 to 180 tons every day. I don't know if y'all noticed this truck around. This is our commercial truck we purchased about 4 years ago. We started our school recycling program plus a commercial recycling program with industry and commercial businesses that are either didn't have a lot of material as some are required to have, or they just couldn't afford some of the higher cost vendors who are coming out there. We do charge the commercials, it's a slight fee for for us picking it up. And we've got our bins. Our bins are orange and we have our recycling logos. And since the school program was started and with the commercial, we've collected right at 700 tons of material from the schools and from the businesses. But the majority of that comes from the schools, the 19 schools, where they recycle all their metal food cans from the cafeterias to anywhere, and also their cardboard and mixed paper and soda bottles at the high schools. We also manage, we got 9 locations in the municipalities, either office buildings or actually we got some at Walhalla and Westminster. We actually have unmanned recycling centers there. This is our material recovery facility. It's located right behind our office there on Wells Highway. We're processing about 3,500 to 4,000 tons of material a year now. Last year was our worst year on revenue. If you know anything about what's going on in the Chinese market, what they call the Chinese sword, the Chinese green fence, you name it, they've got different names for it over the last 4 years. Just about 70% of all recyclables in the United States was going to China, and they cut it off due to the contamination of the product. There's a misnomer out there that if you just got a recycle symbol, you can recycle it. That is not true. You got to have a buyer for it. You got to have an end user for it. And there's also it's got to be clean. They don't want trash. They don't want dirty material because it costs more for them to clean it up than it's worth to buy virgin material. So over the past few years, our material, we don't have a problem moving it. We can get rid of all of our material. There's not an issue with that because we make sure it's clean. With our staff at the recycle centers, there's times we get complaints, they threw away my recyclables. Well, our clerks are trained to look at it. If it's not going to meet our specs, we have to throw it away. So we make sure that it doesn't contaminate the rest of our loads, because what happens, they don't go inspect whether it's dirty or not. When the driver pulls up to pull off from our backside, there you'll notice there's a trailer on that bottom picture, that orange trailer. They'll pull up, they'll hook to it, they'll walk around, and we always have to keep our doors of the trailers open. When they walk up, the first thing they do is walk up to it and they sniff it. If it stinks, they automatically will contact us and tell us, hey, we're not taking this load, it's contaminated. The recyclables are not supposed to stink, they're not supposed to have an odor to them, and they're not supposed to be dirty. So we have to try to keep that material as clean as possible so we can get rid of it. So right now, we are at one of our lowest areas where price of material is very low. We're receiving, for like mixed paper, newspaper, anywhere from $0 to $5 a ton for that material. Scrap metal is way down. For any of you that haul off scrap, you will know that. It is way down. And then we've got materials like glass. It's been even keel for us. We've not had a problem getting rid of glass. We've had the same contract with Strategic Materials out of Atlanta for nearly 25 years, and we have kept that, since we keep it clean and provide them a steady product, they have always given us the best price they can. And we range anywhere from $6 to $18 a ton for our glass that we can get rid of. Moving on. Our mulching facility, we have had an overabundance of mulch over the last few years due to storm and different events that take place. On average, we save nearly 8,000 ton of debris per year. It's up over the last few years. From this standpoint, the average year over the past 10 years has been about 24,000 tons of material into the landfill. So operating this equipment here, every 3 years, you save a year's worth of life in a landfill. Well, what's a year's worth of life equate to? Well, based off dollars and cents, a year's worth of landfill space is about anywhere from $750,000 to $1 million worth of space. All right, so what are we looking at? Some of you, if you live near some of our busier centers, our Center Number 1, Center Number 10 up in the Ebenezer community, Center 5 on the Richland community, and Center Number 2 out at what we call Metromont on Old Clemson Highway. Those are our busiest centers by far, and it kind of correlates with our census data here. If you look at it in 2005 to 2010, you can see there has been some growth in areas and potential and roughly what the population and what on this chart here shows for what's being actually served by those centers. That does not necessarily mean that everybody goes to those centers, because a lot of times they may drive past one that they got to turn off the road to when they can come right next to another, especially if they're going to town. Strawberry Farm, like I said, is one of our busiest. It's right off the main Wells Highway there. People coming into town can just swing in there on their way to work, on the way home from work. It's a whole lot easier to get through. It also shows the average distance that residents in those areas have to drive to get to the centers they're at. Here's some of what's really stuck out here, and this is stuff y'all have probably seen before, where our growth is occurring in the county here. Between the 1990 and 2000 census up to the 2010 census here, you notice the large red areas, they've become more densely populated, anywhere from our change of 15 to 20%, and even to greater than 30% growth in certain of those areas. All of our centers except Strawberry Farm was built on about 2 acres of land, and they are very small. They cannot handle a lot of the growth. Some of you, if you've been to some of our business centers around the holidays, they may be backed out of the gates down the highway. But now that's even occurring on some Saturdays, some Monday afternoons, some Thursdays, depending on what time of day you get there. We may be averaging even at some of these centers up to 100, 130 cars an hour. On holidays, up to 200 cars per hour. So it's getting very difficult to get in and out, and coming from both directions at several of our centers. This shows some of the address changes. It kind of goes along with what we were seeing at the recycle centers. If you notice there, Center Number 2 and Center Number 10, they've had the most addresses that's been assigned since over the last 3 years. And that goes right to prove what we're seeing. And our clerks are telling us the same thing. From Salem to Ebenezer to Metromont, they're like, we're seeing anywhere from 3 to 4 new faces a week that they don't see. And we see these faces every week, sometimes twice a week. People just, trash doesn't stop, y'all know that. If one of y'all can figure out how to keep trash from accumulating, please let us know, because we would like to share that information. But it doesn't stop, and so we see the faces every week. We see them more than probably any other department in the county on a regular basis. These people are coming in. So when our clerks are saying, hey, we're seeing new people every week, and they're asking us, what do we do with this? What do we do with that? It's showing how much growth is actually transpired in those areas. And this kind of speaks volume. Here's our activity over the last 10 years, starting with fiscal year 11-12 there, all the way up to our actual last year data and what we've done so far through the end of January and what we're projecting out to the end of this year. We are the busiest that we've ever been all across the board. But some key points there, if you notice, our total MSW stands for municipal solid waste, is household trash. Those tons, if you notice from over the last few years, it's gone from 36,000 ton to last year close to 44,000 ton, and we're expecting to hit anywhere from 48 to 50,000 tons this year. What's really noticeable of that, if you drop down to our recycle center MSW tons, our recycle center tons has only gone from 13,000 to roughly 15,000, only a growth of 2,000 tons over that same time period. Most of our growth over our overall tonnage is actually coming from commercial, all the new commercial facilities coming into the county, the new industry coming into the county. Our city waste is maintained level. We don't really track that as much as we do our others from our centers. But the city waste is a steady line, just in the same level of our recycle centers. There's not a lot of heavy growth is proportionate to the growth in the county, but the extreme growth comes with restaurants, hotels, different things of those natures, where people come in, they eat. They may not be living here. They may come in for a ball game. They may come in for the weekend, be on the lake. They come in to eat at restaurants. They leave waste, and we manage that waste. But if you notice on here, our total tons managed overall has gone from around 59,000 tons total till last year we managed over 100,000 ton, and we're looking at about 116,000 tons of material this year. Our recycling tonnage has gone up from around 2,800 tons up to around, like I said, 4,200 to 4,400 tons, and this year we're expecting to be about on the same scale. Along with that, though, our revenue, and that correlates exactly with what I was just saying there. If our waste was growing in our cities and also in our recycle centers, our revenue would not be going up. We have not increased fees that much over this time frame. We've only gone up once over that time frame, really, and it was only like between that time frame, about $4 a ton on our tipping fees. If you notice, our MSW tipping fees have gone from around 300,000 to now we're at 900,000. As of January 1st, we'd already hit $1 million in revenue this year off of just the MSW and C&D landfill combined. We're looking at revenues this year of about $1.8 million is what we're projecting so far now. You'll also notice the recyclables, as I mentioned there. The recyclables in fiscal year 11-12 there, we had over $400,000 in revenue. With about, and if you go all the way down, last year we only did $171,000. That's just a decrease in prices, even though our volume has gone up and our tonnage has gone up. All right, there's a lot of, it says, where's our trash going and what options do we have? On this here, this is our local landfills that we are able to take trash to in a day. You don't want to go over 100-mile turnaround trip. 100 miles is roughly what we do now, and this is what all the landfills that are located within a 100-mile round trip of us. We actually take our trash to the R&B landfill, which is owned by Waste Management. They have 25 plus years of life left in their current permitted sale, and they have several hundred acres of land that they can still move into once that those sales have reached capacity. They have not started expansion on those or permitting of those as of yet, due to the fact that they've got so much space right now. They take waste from all over, from Asheville and further, all the way down from Columbia, from Atlanta, all the way around. It's a huge facility. If you've ever had the privilege to go by there, it's enormous. Abbeville County, they have 40-plus years of life in their current sale, and they have several, about 500 acres that they can actually expand into as well. And they're owned by Abbeville County, and waste can be taken there. Anderson Regional is located in Belting. It used to be owned by Anderson County. Then it was sold to, I believe, Waste Connections at the time. And they have a 20-plus years also and room to grow as well. Twin Chimneys is owned by Greenville County. It's located in Honeypath off of Highway 25. They're currently got 30-plus years of life, and they have additional acreage as well to expand. All of these landfills, as far as tipping fees go, are roughly about the same. The reason we're with R&B as Homer is it's actually a quicker turnaround time for us. When they originally did the contract back in 1998, one of the big factors was how fast you can get trash somewhere and get the trailers back. We can load a trailer, send it there to the landfill, have it emptied and brought back in a little less than 2 hours, due to most of it's all straight driving down 59 onto 85 and then back off the exit, and it's like one turn off after you get off the exit. The rest of them, it takes a while because it's a lot of backcountry roads. You got to get around the lakes. There's no quick way to any of them there. So where's our future going? We've been asked that question. So I looked at the things that affect us the most: our recycle centers, our waste disposal, and the recycling program in general. That's our three main topics that we typically discuss. Some of the points that we're looking at: are our centers large enough to handle future growth, or do we need to look at expansion? Or potential consolidation of them, or do we have too many? Should we maybe close some, or think about relocation of some to get them back into the actual populated areas where make it easier for folks to bring their material? Under waste disposal, here's pretty much our options of what currently that is out there: transferring, composting, sorting, separation, and incineration. And then recycling, is it profitable or unprofitable? There's viewpoints on both sides of that table, and then you're either in or you're out. There is no halfway recycling. There's no, you either do it or you don't, and you got to do it to the best of your ability. So as far as that, so here's some considerations you have on recycle centers. How large do the centers need to be? And what kind of costs are associated with those? It's based off population and potential growth of the areas. Like I said, you've seen some of the areas. If you live in Long Creek, you can get in that center all day long with no problem. We average about 100 cars a week at that center. So you go from 100 cars a week to 100 cars an hour at some of our other centers, and you can tell the difference real quick. So we empty for instance, Long Creek Center, we pick up once a week on garbage. It's averaged about 7 tons of garbage a week for the last 14, 15 years. There's been no decrease. Summertime, you get a little extra increase with just folks coming in up there to the river tours and different things, and in the wintertime, it drops right back down to normal without any issues at all. And then you've got our other ones that are busy year-round, and the holidays really affect them. So you look at the population and potential growth of population, and then operations. Will we continue to take the same thing, do it the same way as we've done it for the past roughly 20 years or better, or 30 years or better, depending on where you're at in the county? And what kind of cost? When we redid Strawberry Farm, right there off of the Strawberry Farm Highway, it cost about $600,000 to redo the entire facility there. That was grading the whole 9 yards. We already owned the land. But we expanded that one to enough that we could have events there if we needed it. We got sheds out there that we can handle like a house waste day if we were continue doing those in that fashion. But at a typical site, a 4-acre site anywhere in the county, purchase the land and build it big enough. 4 acres is plenty big enough to last probably another 20 years and handle the flow of traffic like you would need it. you're looking at about $400,000 to $500,000 each to construct them and put in the materials that you would need to handle a large population growth. So we got 4 things I said on the waste disposal considerations. Transferring waste is what we're already doing. So it's wholly dependent upon landfills, but versus what I'm supposed to say on this here. All options, there is no way you get out of taking stuff to the landfill. There's no place in the United States where they say, we are solely 100% landfill free. That is not true. There's always a residual, and it's usually anywhere from 25, 30 to 60%, depending on what you're doing. But transferring waste, you're taking all the waste to the landfill. The landfill, as it grows, like I said, our transfer station, we're permitted for 300 tons a day. As the county grows, that number is going to have to be changed if we continue transferring. And if we continue transferring, then the size of the building would have to be increased or a new one, depending on how our operation is going to currently stay. A new transfer station or expansion upon the one we've got would take between $2 to $3 million either way. To expand our current facility to take twice as much, would be somewhere around like 2 3/4. To build a brand new facility, the size would also be between $2.5 to $3 million, depending on how you're using it. The cost to operate, including disposal, is approximately $42 a ton. As I said, dispose of it is $34.70, and it costs us about $8 a ton to operate the transfer station. And it's continued the same way. We're recycling up front, and it's up to the people to recycle, and once they recycle, we throw everything else away that they put in the household garbage. Composting, the closest composter in the United States to us is in Seaver County, Tennessee. If you've ever been to Pigeon Forge and been to Dollywood, over the past year, you've probably seen ads on TV or whatever. Why didn't Dollywood recycle? Well, they sent everything to a composting facility. However, with that being said, in a compost facility, you have your drawbacks. Only the organic material, so your food waste, your cardboard, your newspaper, things of that nature, anything that would naturally break down is what's composted. And they can compost trash in 72 hours. It goes from trash to compost, and it comes out the other end mixed up with plastic, carpet, and then they sort it, sift it, and then all the residual, if it's not a metal, they send that to a landfill. They have issues on their compost because they do not pre-sort glass, and they have glass in their compost, and so therefore they can't sell the compost as a viable product. They typically give it to DOT, and DOT uses it for bank stabilization, or other landfills use it for slope stabilization. The cost to operate one of those facilities is anywhere from $60 to $70 a ton. That facility there cost them about $25 million to build. Back in the 90s, they have a pretty big facility, depending on based on their amount of volume. But they average about $60 a ton on their operational costs. And like I said, they still require landfilling of waste that they cannot compost. Waste disposal consideration. The next thing is a sorting, separating facility. As far as that goes, that is kind of what we call a dirty MRF. You dump your trash on the floor, and then you sort through the trash to pull out the recyclables. There's one down in Berkeley County that opened last year. They're having issues getting rid of their waste. They have sorted material, and they have material sitting on the floor that they cannot get rid of due to the fact it's dirty, and very few places are wanting to take it. They've even considered adding, the facility cost them about $25 million as a private-public partnership. They build it on public land and operating the facility. And after they put all this in, they're looking now have to put a wash facility in to try to wash the material to get it clean enough so they can actually sell it. And they're kind of at a stalemate of what to do. It still requires landfilling the material. About 60% to 70% cannot be recycled. So they're still only pulling about 30% of the material out, and then have to landfill the other 60 to 70%. And like I said, they partnered with the outside company to fund a facility, but they also one other operation you can do is you can do a sort and separation facility on the front end of a composting facility to try to keep that material out so you could actually compost the organic material. But then you'd have the cost of two types of facilities. Incineration, there's been a lot of talk about incineration. Everybody thinks it's just like in the old days where you just put a 55-gallon drum in your backyard and throw it in there and set a match to it and everything burns up. But what do you always have at the bottom of that barrel? Ash and everything that did not burn up. That ash is not light. It gets heavy. It can get wet. It has material in it that you don't typically put that around your rose beds and flower beds. You kind of find a way to get rid of that material. The same is in this cost here. A typical incinerator for household garbage, it goes with, you got to have scrubbers and stacks and to keep all the air pollutants. The biggest cost in this is putting in air pollution protection. The newest facility in the United States is down in West Palm Beach. You can go to the West Palm Beach Solid Waste Authority. It's actually www.swa.com or .org or .com. Pull up their facility. They got a whole lot of information on that facility. Being West Palm Beach, they've got roughly 1 million residents there. Their cost, they take in about anywhere from 1 to 1.2 million tons of garbage a year through their system. It cost them $672 million to construct it, and it took 10 years to get it permitted. The average cost of a facility for our neck of the woods, based off of EPA's data on their website, will be between $200 to $300 million. Some of you probably heard that over in Franklin County, they put an incinerator for wood waste. We had someone come and speak. We did some investigation on there. That facility there can handle about a couple hundred tons a day, and it cost that company $175 million to build that facility. With that being said, I was speaking with the guy down at West Palm Beach, get some information. It still costs them $25 to $30 a ton to operate the facility. On top of that, they do make power and they do sell power, but the power does not cover enough to cover all their operational costs. They then put a tax or assessment fee on residential homes of $175 per household per year to just cover their operational costs, along with the tipping fees that they charge at the facility. I asked him what their greatest goal was, and he said their landfill space was running out. And if you know anything about Florida, you cannot dig real deep in Florida. You hit groundwater, and so they can only go so high. And in constructing a landfill, you're based on your acreage. You can only go to a certain height. You can't just keep building straight up just because of the slopes can give way. So they had several years of space left based off their tonnage limits. But he told me, he goes, burning it reduces the volume of trash. He goes, and we're considered in airspace, which is volume. He goes, it reduces it by 95%. He goes, but it only reduces the weight of it by 70%. So when you start thinking about our terms, if we're just say for even numbers, 40,000 tons of waste a year, that means you're going to still have to landfill roughly 10,000 tons of material a year. And you have that cost. Then you also would have the cost of the operation of the actual facility. So you look at there, you've got an investment of anywhere from $200–300 million, but then you're never paying that back. And the life of these facilities typically average 20 to 25 years. Then you start all over again due to the age of the materials. As I said, they have a potential to sell electricity. You get energy credits as well that you can sell to other entities, but typically they do not cover. The place you would sell here would be to Duke Power. In North Carolina, they actually have an energy law in place where industry and all they have to provide so much for their power has to be from a renewable resource or a bio credit, so to speak. They put up solar panels. If you've gone down, I think it's 378 out of there, you'll see solar farms left and right in North Carolina, or 321, I believe it is. And you see the different ones there. But once they started buying up those, they started lowering their price that they started paying to get that power back, because once they got the amount they needed, then they can just pick and choose who they sell to or buy from. So where can we go from there? Our thing, it seems that we have always kind of, lack of a better term, fallen by the seat of our pants on solid waste. We react to it instead of being proactive. Where do we going with it? And a lot of the reason in 1991 they started doing it is because the state passed a law. We've got to start recycling. You have to be accountable for your waste. You can't just throw everything into the landfill. And so that's where the recycle centers came forth and came to pass. So we need to start planning for where are we going? What kind of future we're planning here for Oconee County? Where's our population going to grow? Is it going to continue to grow around the lakes? Is it going to continue to grow? It boils down to the same thing y'all have already been doing as far as the farming community is farming community. You've got there, I live out in Fairplay area. You don't have the real growth as you would around the lakes, the same thing. Y'all know that. So putting a facility in certain locations may not be the best idea. It may not be the most beneficial. So it's trying to find out, are we still in the best position? Same way they did fire stations. I mean, you don't build a fire station where there's nobody living. You build a fire station close to homes. So what we need a plan. We need one where we construct, adopt, and fund. And what's our initiative? What are we looking for? If you go and start looking up 25-year solid waste plans, you got cities like Nashville. They've adopted a 25-year plan. It's like 800 pages long. It covers everything you can imagine. And they have what they call a zero waste initiative. They're trying to, all their government facilities are supposed to be zero waste. You're not supposed to be actually producing waste. They want to recycle as much as you possibly can. Or you have a less generation type policy, or or you just want to lower taxes. How do we lower taxes without raising fees to cover solid waste? Or do you own something like a One Oconee where you have, like other places have gone, where they have a solid waste authority that manages everything from cities to municipality or the county government into municipalities? Or do you have something of that situation where everybody's working together and having the exact same program across the board? And what focus? Do you focus on operations, recycling, disposal, education? A lot of our efforts over the last few years, we've been back in the schools with trying to educate the school system, educating the kids, because recycling has been when I was in school, and probably most of y'all, you never heard of recycling. You did some recycling. You might have recycled on the farm, you might have recycled at home by reusing something, reducing what you use, but it was not taught in schools as an initiative. Nowadays, it's in there. We're in there with them. We provide bins, we provide the activities, show them how, what, where they can recycle it, what they can recycle, and those things. And just that alone has increased. That's where our increase, our education and advertisement campaigns over the last 5-6 years. So we have these things here, and fees. What kind of fees do you want to charge? Is it fee-based driven? Do you want to start, there's been things that's thrown out in the past as pay as you throw, or things of that nature, or not in my backyard, we don't want a place here. But it's ideas you got to throw around and see what we want to focus on. Because like I said at the beginning, trash is here unless you're finding a way to get rid of trash and providing your own or cutting back. Everybody's got trash, everybody's got garbage, and it affects all of us. So I'm open to questions. If you got any questions, please. Yes, sir.
I do. First of all, this is great. Excellent. It looks like glass is the only thing that is viable, and it still is a loss financially, but excellent presentation. When I went to the comprehensive plan up in Salem, the people were complaining about that transfer facility up there, that it was just too small and it was always crowded and whatever. Is that something you've heard before? Or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. As long as you've heard it.
Yes, sir. Our overcrowded facility, like I said, our Richland facility, our Metro Mall, Old Clemson Highway, our Ebenezer community, our Salem facility, and at certain times of year, our Port Bass facility off of Highway 11. During the summer months, they're busier. It slacks off during the winter because there's less people on the lakes as much as it was in the summer. But those are ones that we are getting. Salem, we have seen up in Salem that traffic on just any given day, lunchtime, all the way up till 2 in the afternoon, it can be backed out of our gates onto 130.
Okay, I just wanted to know if you had gotten feedback on that also.
Yes, sir.
Because there were a couple of them that said that. Let me ask you the overall question. What can we do to help you?
Well, I don't know.
Will you let us know when you can?
Yeah. Our biggest, like I said, our biggest concern is where we moving forward as a whole. I mean, it's I feel like you shouldn't react to regulations that's coming down the pike. Do you want to continue to transfer waste, or do you want to try to do something different? Everyone's got a drawback. There is no perfect scenario. It used to be, when I first started out with DHEC, the big thing then, back in 2002, was single stream recycling. Put everything in one bin, send it somewhere and sort it. Now they can't get rid of their material. You have places like Sunoco that was over in Greenville. They had the majority of the waste coming from Greenville County, Spartanburg County, Cherokee County, Union County, different ones that were all single stream. Their recycle centers were single stream, put it all in one bin. And when they sent letters out and said, we no longer want this now because we can't get rid of the material, they started shopping around. Nobody else wanted material either. So just because everybody's saying, let's do it, you better look at the long-term effects. What happens if you only have one buyer? What happens if that one buyer goes under? And so that's where we've been. We currently have about 2 to 3 different vendors we use to get rid of our material. And like I said, we do not have an issue getting rid of our material because it is clean. Some of it, I know Mr. Perry, I think you've been down to our facility before, and a couple others, and you can walk in our facility and it does not smell. Now, our transfer station smells like garbage, but our recycling facility does not. And that's one compliment we get as a whole, that you go to a lot of MRFs and they smell like garbage. Charleston County, about 5-6 years ago, they had one of the biggest in the state. They were pushing through over 1 million tons of recyclables a year, but it was all single stream. And when you pulled up at their facility, you thought they had a transfer station. The material was all scrambled together. They had people sorting it, hand picking through it. The year we made $405,000, they made $1 million off of 1 million tons. That tells you there. We had 2,200 tons that year. We made $400,000. There's a premium for, and that's the reason we're still able to move our stuff. Even if at $0, we're still saving money by not throwing it away, but we're still able to move it as well versus some places are fees. Pratt Recycling in Sunoco is now charging anywhere from $30 to $45 a ton for recyclables that are dirty, because they have to clean it up in order to get rid of it.
You keep using that term. What is dirty? I mean, what is contaminant that makes it unhealthy?
Okay, it all depends on what material it is. Plastic, like I said, plastic bottle. For the most part, we ask people to rinse their materials out. We don't ask you to wash it. You don't have to put it in the dishwasher. You don't have to use soap. We just pretty much want you to get the residual out. Like milk jugs. When you get through, just turn them up, let them drain out. Just run a little bit of water through it. Because you don't want that soured milk. In the summertime, our building gets to 95 to 100 degrees down there, and you don't want it smelling like soured milk. And because 50% of our plastic is milk jugs. So we pretty much just want it rinsed out. When it becomes a single stream commodity and they telling people it's easier, just throw it in there. 9 times out of 10, they did not dump it out. They would just put the lid back on it, throw it in their roll cart, roll it down to the side of the street. And then it sat there and sours after a couple of days. They only get picked up once a week. By the time they get it to their facility, it's ripe. And so same thing with paper products. We don't want anything that's been coming in contact with bodily fluid. We don't recycle tissue paper. We don't recycle toilet paper. We don't recycle paper towels. It's just not a over across the board recyclable. It's a one-use, single-use item that has to be thrown away. So we get people that bring in bottles of recyclables or bags of recyclables, and they've got everything stuffed in there, such as like I said, tissues and different things, and you have to throw that away. And if there's stuff in there mixed in with it, you have to throw that away too, because it's come in contact with that kind of material. But any kind of jug, any kind of metal container, food containers, things of that nature, just simply rinsed out. It doesn't have to be spick and span. It's just got to be just rinsed, simple rinse.
What about food, like in contact? I know when I go to the one there in Pine Grove, there's a bazillion pizza boxes.
Right.
Does that mess up anything?
It can, depending on how much grease is in the box, and if they've left food waste that's gotten stuck to it. And a lot of times when they put the pizza boxes down, our clerks, they flip them open, they look in there, and they look at it, and they judge whether or not it needs to be recycled or whether it needs to be thrown away. We try to train them on that, from that standpoint. Materials that are glossy, wax coating, like Christmas time, 90% of the wrapping paper on gifts is not recyclable. It's got a shiny coating on it. And paper mills do not want anything with a wax coating. So when we put out literature on our website and different things, and especially at the centers, that look for wrapping paper that's recyclable, or go use the funny pages at the Sunday paper, do something of that nature, something that's already recyclable that you can turn around and reuse. Any kind of cardboard box that is got a gloss on it, wax, feed bags, like dog food bags. There are like 3 different types of material in a dog food bag. You got a glossy paper board, you got a cardboard liner inside of it, and then you got a plastic liner on the inside of that to try to keep the food clean. I know we have the same thing with chicken feed bags, cow feed bags, all those, unless it's in just a burlap sack, it's pretty much, they're not recyclable, just due to the material contamination. And one thing we faced over the last few years that we've never faced before, and it's a multi-plastic composition to different types of items. You may get a plastic bottle now that has 3 different types of plastic on it. And we have to kind of watch for those too, because if they got too much of equal amount of everything, then it's hard to recycle a mixed contaminated bottle, and that's considered contaminated to a plastic regrind facility.
Wow. Thank you
Yes,
very much. I mean, this is a lot to absorb. It's amazing. A lot of information. In the Nashville plan, did it look reasonable for 800 pages?
Yes, ma'am, because it's a lot of information.
Is it something that we could look at and maybe get some ideas from?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, you would have to make it fit our community.
Right.
Okay? City, over the last, out west, you can look at California, you got places like San Francisco, they say they reduce or reuse, or they divert 90% of their waste. You got to look at what they are actually doing. Where are they sending material to? They got laws in place. They've got, if you don't recycle, they send you a bill. If you don't separate your material, you get a bill. You get a warning. You may get a fine. They've got things enacted in place, and plus they're door to door. I mean, they've got, you go, there is no countryside in San Francisco County. Everything is curbside. So when you have something curbside, and a lot of Nashville is, then you've got a lot more control, because you're setting a box and you got somebody going to look at that box every time they pick it up, versus us, we're a 60% rural county, and most people, I think our numbers show approximately 60 to 70% of the population of Oconee County uses our recycle centers, versus using curbside in the county, or in the cities. So we don't have any control. They can put it in a black bag and walk up, and we don't know what's inside that bag. It's just garbage, because we're not going to tear it open and look through it, because there could be a host of things in there. So you have to kind of fit your plan to how your demographics, so to speak. Because what fits in Washington State and what works in California may not work in Texas, and what works in Texas may not work for us. What works for us may not work for somebody, even in North Carolina, depending on where they're at.
You also said something about your large things like restaurants, or they increase your bulk.
They do, yes, ma'am.
And I'm assuming, just having worked in the restaurant business a little tiny bit, that's probably about the dirtiest waste you get.
Pretty much. That and grocery stores, from all your vegetables, your vegetable waste, your meat waste, things of that nature. We get a lot of that. And so that's kind of pretty much the bulk of our really nasty waste is from commercial facilities.
Is there any incentive so a restaurant, I'm assuming, would go to the municipality's waste pickup, or is that directly to the county?
Or they may bring it straight to us, or they may have somebody like Republic Services, or they may have an 8-yard container sitting behind their business that Republic or Waste Management picks up with their front truck.
And there's no composting of any of the
No, ma'am.
grocery stores anywhere?
No, ma'am. Charleston County, or in Berkeley County, has a composting facility set up at their Berkeley County landfill. They were able to get that permitted, and they partnership with just the public stores in there. But they found out it required like a minimum of 21 grocery stores to make it worthwhile. We don't have 21 grocery stores in Oconee County. And so it kind of, you see a program out there, you got to be able to fit it with what we got. 48,000 tons of garbage sounds like a lot. But when you start looking at our waste stream and start separating everything out, one thing that's been brought up is like glass. Glass is, we average about 400 tons of glass a year that's actually recycled. Now, I don't know what's in our waste stream, but based off national standards, they say only less than 10% of your waste stream is glass. So when you look at that, if you take 48,000 tons, the max amount of glass you've got is less than 5,000 tons. In order to do a lot of the projects out there that people want to do, like glass crushing and selling the glass and different things, you've got to be in the neighborhood of 30 and 40,000 tons of just glass itself to make it profitable, because those machines, one machine may be $250,000 and it takes a beating. It may require being replaced every 5 years, depending on how much glass you run through it, because you're essentially running like sandblasting material right through the machine, and it eats up the hammers and everything else. So you have to look at the material, how much volume you've got, and then do you have a buyer local? Because there's places, right now we're selling, our glass goes to Atlanta. The next closest place is down in Jasper County, Beaufort County. So that's the next closest place we can get rid of glass. And that's for anybody in the upstate. That's not just for Oconee County. That's just for everybody, because there's not a lot of recyclers out there. Tires, there's one company in the southeast they have a monopoly on it. And that's what we call U.S. Tire Recycling. They're out of Concord, North Carolina, and they have Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina. Just about everybody's tires goes to that one company. So you're kind of stuck on where you can get rid of materials from. And same thing goes with paper. Most paper goes back to a mill, so you're either selling to Pratt, which is they own part of Georgia Pacific, and so you're kind of limited where your mills are and what you're doing with your material. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, sir. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. At least you know some ideas or some possible working points.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, some of our biggest things is glass recycling at restaurants. We've looked at that. It would require a lot of manual labor. There's not a lot of machines that you go out there and dump bins of glass, because glass gets so heavy. A roll cart, you can't fill it up. You can only fill it halfway up where it'll rip the frame right out of it. Same thing with 8-yard containers, and then you can't dump it into a big truck because the glass is so heavy. It's just it will beat the truck to death. So it requires manual labor. But then you got every restaurant in Oconee County that sells beer, wine, alcohol. They have a lot of containers that they typically now are throwing away. So you got a lot of potential out there, but then does the manpower that you got to put out there to go after this material, does it justify the outcome of what you're going to be able to, your cost and your recycling product? So there's a lot of things you got to finagle with it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Well, thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready to count people now that we know how much trash we have?
I mean, that would be helpful, that's part of our census plan, so we started, wow, that was a lot of information. I sent y'all emails, if you're gonna have master class.
Yeah.
No, I closed it, oops. Census is coming, and you're probably gonna hear this every time, from us, is that the census is in fact upon us. I'm trying to do this again, at the same time, so hold on a second. Well, I'll just go back here. It's even better. Census will be upon us. Census Day is April 1st. Our plan is attached, and I won't go through it line by line, but we're doing a series of print advertisements. We're doing a series of using phones and digital geofencing, which is a way of kind of targeting our audience using the most effective means possible. As the census is going to be online this year, we're trying to drive that in. So we have lunch partners throughout the county, United Way, to the cities, to other places, and we're just trying to work the plan that Vivian and Bill came up with to get as many people counted as possible. It's worth about $1,200 per person counted to the county over the course of 10 years. Most of that goes to healthcare, or it goes to, you have a problem with the roads, well, federal grant funds are done a lot on census numbers and who's in the area. Solid waste, the only way they're gonna build more solid waste, we know where the population centers are. It hits a census hits every aspect of your life, and I will probably send out, if you all are willing to, on your own personal social medias, the census has a lot of pre-made advertisements for them, and if you all be willing to put those out there, we'll just feed them to you probably once a week and say, hey, just census. That's generally the general plan. If you all have any thoughts, insights, other groups that want to participate, just give us a holler. That's what I have to.
Oh, that's great, short and sweet. All right, corridors. Who is telling us about corridors?
Had a meeting today. There's gonna be a meeting tomorrow with, who is it, Planning and Economic Development? So council has asked staff, as well as our committee here, to look into corridors. And so we're meeting with them tomorrow to see who they want to take the lead on this.
Okay, so this is to be updated at the next meeting,
Correct.
after you've met with council. All right, sounds very good. All right, performance standards for specific uses in the county. I hope everybody sent Adam his requested information of why you think you need them. And we shall see.
So, if I may,
Yes, sir.
several of you sent it back, and they're good iterations of what we're trying to do. So there's 4 different ones here. There's the junkyard ordinance, or the Y for the junkyard, RV park, multifamily, so that'd be like condos, apartments, things of that nature, and commercial development, which is, think of like the Hartwell Village kind of place. These are things that run up during the comp plan. These were things that were brought up by you all as priorities at the first meeting of the year, second meeting of the year. So the question is now, you've kind of given some whys, kind of directed us from this. Do you all want to start working on staff to start working on any of one of these things? Do you want us to start trying to provide you with some language or some ideas? What would you like the next step to be? Because with any of these, you could instruct staff to go ahead and create something or not create something and work it from there. So that is up to y'all.
Comments?
I did my homework and I tried to tie it to the comp plan. And you'll see occasionally, you'll see the numbers in there for each one of these topics. I think it's essential that we try to be proactive and not reactive. And I'm kind of in favor of going forward with these, maybe setting a priority for them, And I think if we decide to go forward with them, that we should write a letter to the county council saying, this is what we're considering doing, and let us know if we are, if you're in agreement with this or you have any input. But again, I just go on the whole idea, we need to be proactive and not wait till something happens and then try to react, because then it'll probably be too late.
Didn't we start on the RV park?
We did look at it, it didn't,
Get any further?
I would have to agree with Mr. Smith in that I think there are certainly at least a couple of these. I know down in our particular area, and I think there's a lot of difference between people having a couple of RVs that are temporary sources of income for them versus a person who's simply ignoring that RVs are being set up on their places as the most affordable option for no home. For me, that would be my priority one if we were gonna move forward with one. Any other comments? Do we need a motion to move forward with them and then a list of priorities, or?
it depends, if you're wanting to do, as Mr. Smith suggested, do a letter of council, that's motion vote for that. If you all want to start working on one or two or however many of them, just a motion instructing staff to come up with whatever that is the route you can go. So that's, or if there's another option I'd like to take.
We started on RVs and we never got anywhere with it. Should we try to take that one up again?
Well, perhaps now would be a good time to ask council, since we have started and not moved forward, perhaps we need a recommendation from council? Does everybody, do we need to ask them for their help, or do we simply need to move forward?
I don't think we
And
need
just
to
ask
ask
for their
them.
input?
I don't think we need to ask them. We can go ahead and just write them a letter and then,
So this is what we're gonna do?
yeah.
I mean, they appointed us to do this because they
Okay, I'm
they
good
don't
with
want
that.
to.
I'm good with that,
So,
okay.
But I do agree, maybe we do these four, might not be a bad idea to prioritize these four amongst ourselves to figure out which one we need to start with first, which one is a bigger priority than the other ones, and start from that point.
So do we want to send that to Adam in an email that says, I say 1357 or whatever, or one,
Whatever.
1, 2, 3, 4?
Would you prefer
and
to have it
whichever.
done here quickly? or-
It would still have to, even if you all came up with it, then I would have to bring it back to you next week, I say this is the total kind of thing. I think you all can.
Do it right here?
If you want to, just say, okay, there's four here, there's the commercial, there's the multifamily, there's RV, and there's junkyard. Those are the four. What is planning commission's priority on those? As far as what do you all feel is most exigent or most necessary?
I think the RV park is one, it was mentioned in the strategic session too.
I've heard that one come up already 3 or 4 times. Is there any discussion or an issue with making that the number one priority?
Are we talking legit RV parks, or are we talking somebody parking a camper on a
No.
piece of property
No, we're not
and
talking
living
about-
in that camper?
No, we're not talking about one.
Yeah, I think last time it started off with if there's more than 3 or
I think we
something.
need to set
I think 3 is
standard.
generally what the other counties are doing.
So if I may, this becomes interesting because the county has RV parks. So we're not gonna create something that's gonna be like, y'all over there have to do this, but we're gonna do, existing RV parks are existing RV parks. So I have some thoughts on what I'll look at bringing in, and as far as this goes, but it's not about limiting it so much as they're houses. They are operating as houses. I mean, that's, a lot of them are. And I think we need to look from a traffic perspective, from a solid waste perspective, from a, even since we like kind of reiterating stuff, even just putting some language in there like, yeah, it's gotta be hooked up or pumped out or something of that nature, even though it falls outside of our purview, we do tend to put that DHEC kind of sanitation issues in there. Not so many as like Arby's breaker or something like that, or you gotta have a sign for it, but, that's just kind of my general thoughts on the matter.
I think that's the. path
Basically,
we're going
like,
down.
if you're gonna park an RV there and live in it, you've got to have a way to dispose of your
Stuff.
waste.
If you were to set up, I mean, this is just my opinion on this, and not, you know, pushing it and punishing at you. But yeah, if you're gonna charge people $1,000 a month to live on your property, you're gonna have to provide some method for their waste to get to a center, not to the side of the road.
Or onto your neighbor's property.
Oh, yeah, or your neighbor's property, or just sitting there, kind of thing. Kind of
And-
holding
and
that
not-
business owner responsible.
Not going to be leaving, 47,000 bags of trash sitting there.
Okay,
when
and so
that
this
person
is
goes home.
for people who are renting out, not just for somebody that's letting their neighbor park their camper there and live, or this is for people who are profiting.
No, this should be for
I think it's for
everyone.
anybody who
If you're-
lives in an RV.
If you're gonna let your neighbor stay in an RV on your property, you still got to get rid of their waste and their trash. It doesn't need to pile up on your property or anybody else's. So whether you're making $1,000 a month or you're letting a friend live on your property, you still gotta get rid of the waste in some way rather than it just piling up there. And we can't say the ones that
Well,
charge
it's
have
not
to do
piling
these
up,
reads.
because
Well-
we have recycling centers. The trash is,
We can't
Right.
say one that charges has to do this, one that don't charge has to do this. Because if you do that, then you'll have more that's not charging, and then it goes a totally different route. If one does it, all have to do it.
well, but if they're not charging, then it's a cost on them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think right now, instead of continuing to go through the weeds on all the details, let's just decide that we would like to move forward with these 4, come up with a priority list, get that to Mr. Chapman, and let county know that we are looking at it, and, see if they have any input or ideas on it as well, if that's okay with everybody.
I
And,
can make a motion.
okay, that would be great.
Let me try to make a motion. I make a motion that the 4 proposed ordinances be developed in priority of importance and forwarded to the county council. Additionally, a letter be sent to county council relating to our intent and asking for their input.
Is there a second on that motion?
Apparently not.
Sure, I'll second that.
All in favor? Say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Me, I'm opposed.
We have 2 opposed and 5 in favor. All right. Now, do we,
If I may.
Yes, sir.
So, just for clarity, outside of perhaps drafting a letter with you,
yes, sir.
I'm not putting together any
Right,
sort of ordinance.
correct.
They're just these headings are going on towards council. Okay,
Right.
just being clear.
Of those, is there any suggestion, can we simply allow him to go on in that order that they are here, 1, 2, 3, and 4? Or would y'all prefer to swap to 1, 3, and 4, or any other differences?
Wasn't the motion just to send them these 4, and then we determine which one's priority? Maybe
Right,
we-
but Mr. Chapman, is that sufficient for you, or to move forward, would you prefer to have 1 to work on rather than all 4?
Why do we need to notify council at this point? Do we not need to?
I think it's a courtesy, really.
But our job is to plan, and then they approve what we do. I think when we get too much input at the beginning, it messes us up.
I think we should
Because they send us on a
prioritize.
different direction than what we originally sent on. It just seems like we keep going back and forth with council and never get anywhere. Where if we just take it upon ourselves, if this is things that y'all really want, then we hash it out, and then we send it to them and say, okay, this is what we want.
And then they can tell us, well,
They
no,
can
that
vote yes or no.
Okay,
I think we need to prioritize these 4, which one we want to start with, basically, and then us do it, let council hear about it after we've done it, because that's why they put us up here.
Right.
Okay, then we need to revise.
So
Alright,
did we
do we
have,
need to
we really
revise the
didn't have
motion
further
or amend the
discussion
motion?
after our first and our second and our, we voted without discussion and so.
All right,
So there was a motion.
there was a motion
There
that
was a
we
vote.
move forward with the 4 ordinances and that we notify council of our intent and ask for their input on
Just
this
ask for their input.
move.
And now we do not want to do that, is that correct?
Well, there was no time for discussion before the vote.
At least me and Stacy don't want to do that.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion to amend the motion?
Let's amend the motion.
I make a motion to amend that we don't send a letter to council, that we take this upon ourselves, and then we'll notify council of what we have decided once we discuss all these. Because
Okay, I've got the motion right here. I can just leave the last sentence off of it. You want me to read
About
it
sending
again?
it to council.
Well, you have to amend the motion that we made. We've made a motion with the letter, so let's accept that motion. And we need a second on Ms. Lyle's motion, is that correct?
So we're amending.
We're amending Mr. Smith's motion with a motion from Ms.
We
Lyle.
were amending something that was already voted and approved, so.
That's
we need to
correct.
strike
Can
that.
Right, so.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion, we rescind the motion and vote that we just taken and do a new motion.
Is that the best
Motion
way?
to send that,
I'll second that.
okay.
Okay, we're starting over from ground zero.
Conversation.
All right, hold on.
You have to-
We had a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this? On the rescinding of the vote?
On the rescinding of the motion? No, okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so that motion is rescinded.
Now we can start over.
Now, let's start over. Anybody want to move forward with the motion?
I do. I make a motion that the 4 proposed ordinances be developed in priority of importance and forwarded to county council, period.
Wait.
I didn't say anything about a letter
Oh, after,
after we
I
do
don't know
them.
if we need that.
Well, okay, so if I may, so that's how we do it. I mean, that's just the progress of it. Once we develop it, we will send it to them. And if we have to do all 4 at the same time, then we can certainly prioritize it at that. I don't see us sitting on 4 at a time or me being able to give you 4 at a time.
Yeah,
So perhaps at this point, you look at prioritizing. There's 4 here.
Okay.
Perhaps you all discuss, what's the first one I'm working on?
I think the consensus is the first one to be the RV park.
So if that is accepted, then go ahead, a motion for staff to develop an RV park ordinance. Second conversation.
Right. Anybody, can I have a motion that we request staff to move forward with the development of an RV?
I'll make a motion that we request staff to develop.
Do we have a
an RV
second?
park.
I'll second that. So, you can do it?
Is there any discussion?
Now, this also, you will look into state regulations on RV living, on those regulations for living in an RV permanently. The state regulations on that, correct?
I can certainly do that, yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? All right.
Send in a letter.
No letter. We're just going to ask him to do us an ordinance. All in favor? Opposed? All right. Now, what do we want to do as number 2? The second most important ordinance.
I think the multifamily development, that seems to be low-cost housing, things like that.
I think the junkyard should be up there as well.
I think the junkyard is low-hanging fruit. I think we can make that one pretty easy and get that off our plate.
That can be done in about 45 minutes, I think.
I think our multifamily
Is a tough one.
It's going to be
is on
hard.
up there because of so much happening down on 123, our multifamily
Sure.
things.
All right, now,
That's correct.
so do we want to do a quick one and get it done and then come back and work on the multifamily one? Or do we want to put off the junkyard one long further and come up with the
I think we should do the junkyard
multifamily?
before multifamily, because the multifamily is gonna take some time.
We may learn something from doing the junkyard real quick, be able to learn lessons learned.
So
All right,
I'd
can we
like
have
to
that
make
in the form of a
that we
motion?
make the junkyard the second item.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Do we have DHEC regulations on junkyards?
DHEC does regulate junkyards, but just like with our sterile dumps, but just like the rest of it, we can have local regulations for it. So DHEC has very specific standards. The state has a very specific junkyard ordinance. Unfortunately, we don't qualify for it because it's only for counties with a certain number of populous cities in it, and it's basically like Charleston and Columbia. So everyone else has to make up their own. So there are state regulations for how they operate, drainage.
So,
oil
I mean,
stuff.
seeping into the soil, that's something DHEC would regulate, we don't
Correct.
regulate.
And just, as I mentioned before, we can certainly reference it or mention it, but we don't have that regulatory authority at this moment in time.
So what it says, one of the gripes here is about our soil and water and stuff, and there's nothing we can do about that.
That's correct. So what the state ordinance is mostly about screening. You gotta put a fence up. Can't be visible from state highways, things of that nature. That's the majority of the state ordinance. I mean, there's other stuff to it as well. But as far as how it operates, as far as pollution and things of that nature, that is, we're not tooled to look at oil and wastewater, although we can certainly bring it to DHEC section as we do on a regular basis.
So, but we do not fall under the DHEC regulatory mechanism because of our population.
So we don't, so the state has an ordinance for junkyards. Purely, it's mostly almost all screening. We don't hit that. DHEC still goes, regardless of size, still goes and looks at the environmental impacts of junkyards. But the state ordinance for junkyards is almost completely screening for that. But we're not following that because it's for, I think the city has to have at least 50,000 people in it. You have to have one municipality in your county with 50,000 people in it, 70,000 people, something like that.
I'd like, if we're gonna have a junkyard ordinance, that we define a junkyard.
For sure.
Well, that's what I'm sitting here going. Do we even have a junkyard in Oconee County if we don't fall under an ordinance because of population?
By definition, we certainly do, but then we don't have that. That DHEC goes and regulates all the junkyards. But as far as the screening aspect of it, the visual impact, which is what I think that this would look at mostly, is just, does not, we don't fall into that.
Well, I'm thinking, you got farmers that have equipment that they don't paint just every year, and they don't have a shed to put it under. We can't call that a junkyard, because that's his working equipment.
That's
If you got a guy that's got 5 acres of old cars that is scrapping out, that is a junkyard. If you got a mechanic, a shade tree mechanic that's got 4 or 5 old cars now, is that a junkyard or not?
Or if you have a hobbyist that has 10 cars sitting around because he's gonna work on them one day, is that a junkyard?
I think we're getting into the junkyard.
All right, I was gonna say, okay, so it sounds like to me then we do need a number 2. Yes, okay, so I believe that we have a motion and a second that the junkyard ordinance be number 2. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We got a 1 no? All right, then we go to 3 and 4, multifamily and commercial development.
I think they're in order.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that.
Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we leave them in the order they are, number 3 and 4.
Is there a second of that?
I'll second that.
All right, is there any discussion on those? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Mr. Chapman, do you have all that? Because it certainly went back and forth several
I
times.
certainly have that 100%. If anything's wrong with it,
It's on video.
Can I make a
Gonna watch
request?
the
Can we have a list of the junkyards that are businesses in our county? Because that's all we're looking at is the businesses, correct?
we don't issue business licenses for the county. I guess tax assessor, if they have a column for that.
We got one.
So I can try to pull up a list. I believe that it probably is a tax assessor list, so I'll look at that. Same thing with RV parks and mobile home parks and things of that nature, just for taxation purposes. So I'll look into that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Life after lockup, Mr. Smith?
It'd be me, life at the lockup. I went by and I saw the sheriff. It's piqued my interest because of, we have a very large population in prisons and jails. And when they get out, how do we get these people back on track? And I'd read a very interesting business article about a company that 80% of their people have a conviction on their resume, so-called resume. And they run about 230 some odd $1 million through their business and how successful they are. And of course, there's some that are not very successful. So I went and I asked the sheriff, I said, what kind of program do you have? And he calls it Life After Lockup. And I sat down with the sheriff in the first part of February. And he has a very active program. And I don't know if you were here the last time at the county council meeting, but they had somebody come up and they wanted to hire this person over at the, what do you call it, over there at the gravel?
Rock quarry.
Rock quarry. And apparently he knew how to run the equipment and whatever and was doing a good job. And from what I understand, the county council agreed to hire him over there full-time. The state, or the county has about 10 state prisoners, but they have a program, obviously, to treat drug addiction. He has inmates in the animal control facility. He has them at the rock quarry and a couple others. He has one that is in the jail that has got HVAC experience, and he said he has saved the county an enormous amount of money going around and repairing these various machines that they have. What is really great is 8 to 10 businesses, they say, that are in the county here hire former inmates, and they're paving companies, etc. And he has worked very closely with Tri-County and to get the businesses in there to Tri-County. And what he's got is a program, of course, to get your GED. You can get a certification as a forklift operator and a couple others. And there has been a lot of interest in these from outside, in the companies from outside of the jail area looking for people because, of course, everybody's looking for good, steady work. Anyway, I thought this was a wonderful program, and it's too bad it doesn't get celebrated more because everybody stumbles every once in a while going through life, and they need a little leg up and some encouragement. But I brought this up too because of affordable housing. When you go through some kind of drug addiction program and you successfully get through it, one of the first things that they tell you is you have to get out of the environment that you're in. You have to get out of that playground. So this really relates to something that we need to continue to work on, which is called affordable housing, and to get these people out of that environment and offer them that. Anyway, I thought it's a great program, and it's too bad it didn't celebrate it more often. That's all I had about Life After Lockup.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's important
Okay,
to know.
well, let's all keep that about affordable housing in mind when we're reviewing the RVs.
Yeah,
Right.
because
Exactly.
that's what it's actually about. And that's the last stop before homelessness.
And the more regulation we put, the higher that rent's gonna be.
Right.
Well, but you don't want it to go into a drug-infested area either. You don't want it to become that.
Well, I think it's time for us, we'll get to that point when we have something on paper. Is there any unfinished business? Any new business? Yes, sir?
So I had your request published, advertisement for tomorrow night's, council meeting.
Oh, that's correct.
This will be the third and final reading for the comprehensive plan. If more than, some of you had discussed about showing up and speaking in favor of the comprehensive plan during the meeting. If more than 3 of you are gonna do that, have a legal ad already put out, and if that's the case, I just need to do a immediate blast, a couple other things. So if you all think more than 3 of you are gonna show up at tomorrow night's meeting to speak about the comp plan, let me know.
Can y'all do that?
I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna show up.
I
I'm
will
gonna
be
be out
unable-
of town.
I'll be unable to attend because they've called a fair board meeting for tomorrow night.
You sure not?
Softball.
I may or may not be there. I'm in a meeting with council before that meeting, so
So it doesn't
We
look like
currently
we'll
have
quorum.
two,
That's fine.
so,
possibly.
It won't be a quorum.
Won't be a
so we're
quorum,
good.
so we're
So
good.
whatever two are gonna speak, you're certainly, if you want to speak as a planning commission member, you can. If you want to speak on behalf of the planning commission, you're gonna have to motion to vote that.
Well,
I think you will be speaking as individual members.
I think the plan should speak for itself from us.
I believe. Everybody good?
I don't have a problem standing up and saying something as an individual member. But I think I will mention that we all voted unanimously to send this program forward for their approval.
Which should stand on its own, to me.
Yeah.
But yes, I would agree. All right, are we good?
That should already be part of the record.
Yeah, but I think it needs to be said too, doesn't hurt.
That's
Y'all
your
ready?
prerogative.
Y'all ready?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
I think we need to vote on that?
Unanimous?
Unanimous. Thank you.